questions about taxes, and I can't ask them all, so I'll just kind of distill them down into one question here. And looking at the state of Rhode Island and the budget you might be obligated to vote on if elected, would you tell us some areas where you might raise taxes, cut taxes, or leave it as is? Just kind of give us your just a snapshot looking at the state budget, where you think we're taxing too much, too little, or what you might do. We'll start with Mark Schwager.
Well, the tax policy, at the state level, at the income tax level, the state had changed the marginal rates back, I think, in 2010, and they're still trying to see whether that is improving revenues. Tax policy is impacting our community mostly at the property tax level. East Greenwich, again, I don't know the numbers for West Greenwich, but in East Greenwich, 90% of our state government, of our town government, is funded through property tax. So as far as tax reform for our district, we need to be looking to see if we can reduce our property taxes. Some of that will come through increased aid from the state. We do have a high tax state at both the state level and at the town level. I think probably the best mechanism for trying to reduce that is economic development and growing our revenues.
Mr. McDonough.
I have two major tax reform proposals. The first entails the issue Mark just brought up, where the legislature changed the ability of our taxpayers to deduct the payment of property taxes, and also the inability to deduct sales tax on vehicles. In my estimation, that is a double tax. That's income we never see. When we pay our property taxes, that's no longer our money. We've turned that over to our municipality. When we pay sales tax on a vehicle that we need to drive to work, that money isn't in our pocket anymore. So why should we be taxed on income for that money that we paid in taxes? So right out of the gate, that's something I would want reintroduced to allow the taxpayers of the state to deduct those two taxes. The next reform that I proposed is on the sales tax. There is nothing more frustrating for me than to see the out-of-state registrations on vehicles in the summertime, mainly from Florida, because it's an income tax-free state, that come up here where they've settled in six months and 1 day to claim residency in Florida, and then they come up to Rhode Island and take full advantage of this state in every other respect. They're not paying sales tax on that vehicle, they're not paying registration on that vehicle, they're not paying income tax, but they come up here for 5 months and 30 days and enjoy Rhode Island. But there needs to be a way that we can recoup some revenue from those individuals, and I want to investigate that and form a task force on how we can do it. One recommendation that I've thought of is this. If they're down there, if they're, for example, let's say they're retired from state government, they're collecting a pension. That pension is being sent to Florida, they're not paying income tax on it in Rhode Island, even though they're up here for 5 months and 30 days. Well, that money was earned in Rhode Island, so if it was deferred, why aren't they paying income taxes on it? There's got to be some way that we can capture that revenue in the state because we're bleeding. More importantly, however, is the taxes that we do pay as citizens in the state, where is it going? Could someone please tell me where are the taxes that we pay through the nose is going? And I've got an idea. One area that it's going to is the judiciary branch of government. Now, the legislature is afraid to tackle that for one reason. The majority of them are attorneys, and they don't want to upset the apple cart with the judiciary. But the judiciary's budget, I went back to 2003 and looked at it. It was $74 million in 2003. The proposed judiciary budget for this year was $104 million. That's a 45% increase. Their number of employees went from 666 to 723. While we're firing janitors in other departments in the state, we're hiring judges. Something's got to stop this bleeding.
Mr. Giarrusso, your thoughts on tax policy cuts, increases, go.
Well, what Mr. McDonough just said about these Florida plates and all that stuff, brings me to what one of our big problems is. Rhode Island's a very expensive place to live. It's also a very expensive place to die. I mean, a lot of old people, they go to Florida because they want their kids to get the first cut of their estate tax, not Uncle Sam or not Rhode Island. And as part of like our 3 a.m. legislation for estate taxes, that Rhode Island is so lopsided that, the federal government is nothing compared to what Rhode Island is. We just we just taxed them until they're screaming and crying. So I'm out there campaigning, and I'm talking to people, and it was an elderly gentleman, and he told me that they're going to be moving to Florida because Rhode Island's too expensive to die. So now, if it's too expensive to die, and you're moving to Florida, there's a lot of money that's not being spent in Rhode Island. And as Mr. McDonough alluded to, they're over there, and they're getting pensions. I think there's like 20, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's an astronomical number of Rhode Island pensions going to Florida. But, it cuts both ways. And the biggest problem is we keep turning our back to what can fuel this economy. Get some jobs. It all starts with jobs. If we have jobs, we have everything. Somebody's working, they're not collecting anymore, they're paying their taxes, they're supporting their local merchants. It's all about jobs. And we keep promoting all this other crazy stuff at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's got to stop.
Thank you.